to have a great God like that? Yeah. Okay, let's talk about the lesson. We're starting a new series this morning. We're talking about being unbalanced. And talking about how to find balance in our own world, in our own lives, and things that seem unsteady, things that seem to be kind of shaky, or just trying to balance everything that we have going on in our own relationships and workplaces and everything in our own personal lives, even with our physical health, the things that kind of get out of kilter sometimes, that knock us off of balance, and how to try to stay balanced in our lives. And I'm assuming that maybe you've heard people talk about balance before. You may have read books about how to have balance in your life, or heard motivational speakers, do awesome PowerPoint presentations of how to find workplace balance and home life balance and all those kinds of things. And I'm not for sure that through this series I'm going to share with you anything that's just earth-shattering, like, wow, I never knew that before. Maybe we are. Maybe we're going to discover some things that you never thought about before, especially from God's perspective of wanting us to have balance. But to try to give you a picture of, at least in my mind, what I'm trying to get across in this series about feeling out of balance, I thought I'd show a movie clip to you this morning from the movie National Treasure 2. Now, I think if I go back, I feel like this is the second reference to a National Treasure movie in a few weeks. I feel like I referenced it again just a few weeks ago. It's on TBS all the time, so it probably just gets stuck in my mind that way. But I wanted you to see this clip. If you haven't seen the movie before, I don't think this will spoil it for you. You should probably go watch this good movie. But just this concept of being unbalanced, to me, comes shining through in this clip that we're going to watch right now. Jason, go ahead.
It's a little golden man. It's got like a tiny little torso. Look at that. Looks like...
Move back! All of you, other side! Back up! Back up! Riley, move forward! Move forward! Oh, back up! Back up! Oh! What do you want me to do? Stop! Stop! We have to balance our weight to even this thing out.
Now, that's what I want to show you this morning. And I know some of you are like, what'd you stop it for? Let's keep watching. I wonder how many of us feel that way. I mean, if you see the scene there, it's this giant platform that they land on, and it's on, this kind of pillar in the middle, and they've got to figure out how to balance everything out. And just some of the emotions that they go through in those few seconds is not something that they expected. They're walking along, and all of a sudden, everything's topsy-turvy. And they're trying to figure out how to keep from everything just collapsing and falling off the edge of this platform. And at the same time, one's yelling instructions to another, come forward, back up. And he stops in the middle of them and says, what? What do you want me to do? How many times do we feel that way looking at our own lives? When we feel like things are just shaking and I'm focusing on this, but now I'm too far and I'm missing out and I need to focus on this. And I sometimes want to stop and just go, what is it I'm supposed to do? Where is it I'm supposed to be? What direction am I supposed to go? I feel like everything's falling apart. We got to figure out how to balance this thing out. That's what we're going to be talking about. We can look at different things in our lives. We can sit there and go, okay, well, I'm focusing on my marriage, or I'm focusing on my dating relationship, but I've also got my job, and I got to make sure to get my hours in or get these different projects done before this deadline. And then I've got school starting. I got all that to take care of. I've got my finances that I'm worried about. I got to make sure I maintain all my friendships and like everything I'm supposed to and on all my social media. And then I've got my own physical health I got to worry about. And the house is a wreck. And the yard looks terrible. And some of y'all are out of breath, me just describing all those things, right? And you know how it feels. I'm out of balance. I'm so focused on this, and I'm missing out on something over here, and I got to rush over here and try to get that done, and now I'm leaning too far this way. And that's just our schedules. That's not to mention just what we want to be thinking about and focusing on. Is my family being taken care of? Are they healthy? Are we connected? Do they feel good about themselves and about just being a part of our family? Are my finances the way that they should be? Am I staying in budget? What's my faith like right now? When's the last time I spent some time praying, reading my Bible, spending some time with some other Christian folks? Is my physical health anywhere that it needs to be? Am I focusing on all of it? Not just am I going and doing all the things that I have to do. Am I focusing on all the right things? Or am I out of balance in some of those things as well? Are there gaps in my life because I'm focused so much on this thing over here, I'm missing out on something else over here? When we feel like we're leaning too much, then we feel like we got to overcompensate and go over this way. It's overwhelming. It's exhausting. It's frustrating to feel off-center, to feel off-kilter, to feel unbalanced. So that's what we're going to take a look at starting this morning. And for the next several weeks, looking at different aspects of our lives that can become unbalanced. Are we going to touch on every single thing? Absolutely not. But just some things that we can be maybe aware of, and some things that we can start doing to help ourselves feel like we are a little bit more balanced in our lives. That with all the things that can make us unsteady and unsure and unstable, that we can find a way to balance some of those things out. So what I want to make sure we understand this morning is that I believe God has a plan for us to live fairly balanced lives. Now, it may be something that we're constantly having to work on, but I think God designed us to have balance. I'll give you an example. If you got your Bibles, you can open up to the book of Ecclesiastes. It's probably, if you got the paper version, it's probably almost right in the middle of the Bible. It's in the Old Testament. It was written thousands of years ago by a really wise guy named Solomon. And Solomon, at the end of his life, is kind of taking a look around and looking at his own life experiences and looking at the world around him. And he says this in Ecclesiastes chapter 3, beginning in verse 1, he says, "There's a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens. A time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to uproot, a time to kill, and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to scatter stones, a time to gather them, a time to embrace, a time to refrain from embracing, a time to search and a time to give up, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to mend, a time to be silent and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace." Now, many of you thought that back in the 60s, the Byrds came up with this song on their own. Not true. They stole it from Solomon. I don't know if they gave him royalty rights or not, but look at how Solomon describes our world and our lives. There's balance. There's a time for everything. There's a need for us to have balance. I need to work and I need to be productive and I need to spend time with my family. I need to be thrifty. I need to save some money. And at the same time, I need to be generous and not hold on to my possessions too tightly. I need to take time to rest. I need to take time to relax and enjoy this world that God has given me. And I need to sometimes get up off the couch and do something. There's a need for balance. God has designed us. God has designed me with a need for balance in my life, as well as, I believe, the capacity to maintain balance. This isn't some lofty goal that can never be achieved. I believe this is doable. Now, are there always going to be things that might knock me off of balance? Sure. But I believe that if we really pay attention and really live the way God is calling us to live, that we can find balance in our lives. We need to understand some things about how hurtful, how potentially dangerous living an unbalanced life can be. Some truths about being unbalanced. One thing that we need to know about being unbalanced in our lives is that being unbalanced actually increases anxiety. If I don't have a lot of stress in my life, and if I don't have a lot of things that I worry about, Watch what happens when things start to unravel a little bit. When I start to feel multiple things and multiple people trying to pull at me for my time or my focus or my energy. When I start to feel overwhelmed at trying to do all things for everybody. When I start listening to multiple voices telling me, this is the most important thing. No, this is. No, you need to take care of this and focus on this. If I didn't have any anxiety before that point, I will. It's going to happen. And if on the other hand, if I already feel pressure and worry and stress, if those things are starting to creep into my life already, if I'm starting to have thoughts of just feeling overwhelmed because I have this unbalanced area of my life as far as my priorities or my schedule or my habits or any of those kinds of things, whatever stress and worry I have is just going to increase. It's going to get worse. Matthew chapter 6 and verse 27, Jesus asks kind of a rhetorical question. He says, can any one of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life? When you have worry and stress, and then you worry and stress even more, you know what you get? You get more stress and worry. You know what you don't get? More time to deal with the stress and worry. The obvious answer to Jesus' question is no. No, I don't get, more time. No, I don't get a single hour added to my life. As a matter of fact, giving into worry and stress increases my worry and stress. Makes the platform that I'm trying to balance out feel even more unbalanced. Being unbalanced also often creates blind spots in my life. I need as much as possible to maintain a balanced field of vision. I need to be paying attention to different aspects of my life and different people that are in my life. I need to make sure that I'm not so focused on one thing that I'm missing out on something else, that I'm not paying attention to something that's very important. And yet, I find myself, maybe you find yourself in the same boat, I get tunnel vision. I get the blinders on. We don't have to deal with this anymore in our culture nowadays because we've had advances in technology. But years and years ago, they used to put these blinders on horses. They would have them on plow horses to make sure the horses weren't distracted by different things that might distract them so that they would plow in a straight line. Teams of horses would have the blinders on so they wouldn't be scared or startled or anything or distracted by anything to the sides of them. Just focus on either the road in front of them or the horse that's on the road in front of them. They got the blinders on. They can't see anything else that's happening on the sides of them. And I know that's a really simplistic illustration, but folks, this is me on a regular basis. I get tunnel vision. I get the blinders on. I focus so much on this over here that I completely miss out on something I need to be paying attention to over here. Being unbalanced creates blind spots. I'm not watching and paying attention to things or people that I should be because I'm so focused on something else. Living an unbalanced life causes me to be blind to and to miss out on really important stuff. This church family knows a few weeks ago, these wonderful teenagers allowed me to go with them and climb up a mountain in Colorado. And being the old guy, and not necessarily in the best shape in the world, carrying this huge pack on my back, and we're walking, for the most part, in single file lines up these trails going up the side of the mountain. There would be times where I would hear comments from teenagers going, "Oh man, this is beautiful," and people would stop and take pictures. Look at that, isn't that amazing? You know what I was seeing? The feet of the people in front of me. And we would stop every once in a while, and it always, to get a drink of water or something. It's almost like, oh, where'd these mountains come from? What? Did y'all see this? Because the whole time, I was right here. I was making sure, watch that rock, I'll trip on that. And I was watching right here the whole time, and I was blind to this amazing creation that God had provided all around me. I do that every week. There are people that I can connect with. There are ways for me to see God's presence in all sorts of aspects of my life, and I miss it because I'm so focused on this one thing right here. It's what living an unbalanced life does. It creates blind spots. We miss out on potentially serving people, connecting with people, enjoying blessings that God could give us because we're so focused on this thing over here. We miss it. There's a story that's told in Luke chapter 10 of some people that Jesus knows, and he's at the house. Jesus is there at the house teaching, and these two sisters are there. I've mentioned them to you before, so we'll go through this quickly, but there's two sisters, Martha and Mary, and Martha is busy getting all the dishes washed and food prepared and doing everything she needs to do for all the guests who are in the house, and Mary is sitting there listening to Jesus. And Martha comes up to Jesus and says, Jesus, look at my sister. Look how lazy she is. She's just sitting here. Look at all that I'm doing all by myself. Tell her to help me. Jesus' response in Luke chapter 10, verse 41 is, Martha, Martha, you're worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed, or indeed only one. Jesus is saying, Martha, you're out of balance. You have the Son of God in your living room. The Messiah is right here, telling you things you've never heard before, sharing things with you that you desperately need to hear. And you know what you're doing? Washing a dish. You're missing it. You're unbalanced. That's what living an unbalanced life does to us. It creates blind spots. Being unbalanced, I'll say this, it always requires action. It requires me to do something. If I want something to be different, if I don't want to have this unbalanced life anymore, I've got to do something about it. I can't just wish. I can't just complain about it and go, man, my life is unbalanced. Oh, well, keep doing what I'm doing. Remember that movie clip at the beginning? If they kept doing what they were doing, what's going to happen? They're all going to topple off the platform. We got to do something different. We got to figure out how to balance this out. We got to take some action. Same is true for my own life. If I'm looking at my life right now and I feel busy and I feel overwhelmed and I feel like I'm missing out on stuff because things are out of balance, what am I willing to do different? Because until I decide to take action, I'm just going to keep feeling out of balance. Nothing's ever going to change. In Deuteronomy chapter 1, we find that the people of Israel have been out in the wilderness for 40 years, mostly for punishment for choices that they made. And they've been sitting at the foot of this mountain for years and years. And finally, God comes through Moses and tells his people in Deuteronomy chapter 1, verse 6, you've stayed long enough at this mountain. You've been here long enough. It's time to get up and move. It's time to do something different. And that's the same for me, folks. When my life is out of balance, I need to do something different to get things evened out, to get things where God can bless me, to get things where I can see all the ways that God can use me in my life and use other people to bless me in my life. So what are the actions we need to take? I got a handful of them real quick. I share these with you this morning because these are going to come through with all the different lessons we're going to share over the next few weeks about this unbalanced life and how to make it more balanced. Some action steps that we can take. And the first one is this. If I want to get more balance in my life, first thing I need to do is take an honest inventory. An honest, a genuine inventory of my life right now. I need to be honest and acknowledge what things might be out of balance. I need to be real with myself. And take an honest look at where the gaps are. Where are the things that are negatively impacting my life? Where are the things I'm focusing on and maybe focusing on them too much? Where are my blind spots? Jeremiah says in Lamentations chapter 3 and verse 40, let's examine our ways. Let's test them. And then let's return to the Lord. Now, in this context, he's talking about sin in the lives of the people that he was living around. Let's be honest. Let's look at choices we're making. Let's look at some of the consequences that we're experiencing because of some of those choices. But the principle is the same. When I look at my schedule and my relationships and my friendships and the people that I'm connected with and my faith and my connection with God, when I look at all those things, I need to be honest about that. Let's take an honest look. Are things off kilter? Am I leaning too far one way and something else is suffering because of it? And if it is, let's get back to where God calls me to be, where God designed me to be, and live in this balanced life. Number two, I need to get help. I don't have to do this on my own. I need to get help. I probably need help recognizing where the blind spots are. I need somebody that I can trust to be honest with me and go, yeah, there's a gap in your life right now. I see it. I need to find somebody who will tell me what I need to hear, even if I don't want to hear it. I may need help getting things balanced. Go back to our movie clip again. 4 people on that platform. It wasn't up to one of them to try to get everything evened out. We got to work on this together. We got to work together to even this out. I need help. I need somebody who I know cares about me to be honest with me and go, here's something that you need to do different. Here's something that I recognize that could be better. Here's where I see you're leaning way too far. Solomon said in Proverbs chapter 12, verse 15, the way of fools seems right to them. The way of somebody who's not going to pay attention, who thinks, I got it, I'm good. That's a fool. And everything seems fine to them. But the wise person, the person who wants not only the best for his life, but the best for the lives of people around him, he listens to advice. He listens to people they trust to help him. Find somebody to help. Find somebody that you trust that can be honest with you and show you where things may be lopsided and how to do better. Number 3, be willing to shift. Be willing to shift some things around in your schedule. Be willing to shift some priorities. I need to be willing to shift my focus towards certain people or towards certain situations, or shift away from some of those things. It may not be that I need a complete overhaul of my life. I may just need to shift a few things here and there. I may need to just make a few changes. We go back again to when the people of Israel were out in the wilderness thousands of years ago, and Moses is leading them through the wilderness. And Moses was an amazing guy. But Moses was going and spending time with God, finding out what God wanted him to tell the people, going back to the people, telling them what they needed to hear, answering all their questions, dealing with all their mess, and at the same time, walking them through the wilderness without a map, just a cloud to follow. Oh, and by the way, every time they had any kind of arguments or disputes, guess who they came to settle it? Moses. There's a whole bunch of different things that Moses is trying to do, and his father-in-law comes to him and says, you can't do this. I'm looking at your life as someone that Moses trusted, as someone that Moses would seek advice from, and he says, you're lopsided, you're off-center, you're unbalanced. He says in Exodus chapter 18, verse 18, you and these people who come to you will only wear yourselves out. Remember we talked about more anxiety, more blind spots? The father-in-law sees it. It's going to happen. The longer you keep doing this, this is what's going to happen. The work is too heavy for you. You can't handle it alone. This is unbalanced. So he tells him, get other people to help. You don't have to hear everybody's problems. Let other people hear everybody's problems. If there's things that they can't figure out, they can come to you, but set up some other people to listen and to hear and to make some decisions that you don't have to worry about making. And this is what Moses does. A few verses down in Exodus chapter 18, verse 25, he chose capable men from all Israel and made them leaders of the people, officials over thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens, and they served as judges for the people at all times. The reason that I point this out to you is not just to show you how Moses' life was potentially becoming unbalanced, but notice what he did to fix it. It wasn't a major overhaul. He didn't completely quit. He didn't be like, you know what, done. Y'all figure it out. Get to the promised land on your own and walk away from it. He shifted things a little bit. He took some things that he didn't have to be responsible for and gave that responsibility to somebody else. He shifted his focus. Sometimes that's all it takes, folks. I just need to be willing to do that. I need to be willing to shift some things here and there. Change my priorities, change my schedule. Make something else more important. Make something that's probably not important less important. I need to be willing to shift. And finally, sometimes I need to be willing to let go. Sometimes there are things that I need to absolutely get rid of, walk away from, things that are throwing me off balance. And maybe it's habits, maybe it's addictions, maybe there's things that there's people in my life that are bad influences. Maybe there's certain things that I'm doing in my time, and my time would be much better spent just not even doing those things anymore. There's things that are dominating my focus. They're keeping me from being the best spouse or the best coworker or the best leader or the best friend that people need me to be. So maybe I do need to change jobs. Maybe I do need to let go of some possessions. Maybe I need to change some of my spending habits. Maybe I need to let go, walk away from a friendship. Maybe I need to stop dating that particular person. Maybe I need to just let go of some time killers. Netflix, social media, those kind of things. I know, some of you are like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I was with you until then, preacher. Whatever it is, you fill in the blank. Whatever it is that has become more important to me than my spouse or my family or my financial peace or my connection with God, if there are things in my life, if there are habits in my life that are tipping my life in the wrong direction, sometimes I just need to let go. Walk away from it. Be done with it. So that I can live the balanced life God designed me to live. And I don't know what that is for you. I know some of the things in my own life I probably need to let go of. But the challenge comes from the author of Hebrews in Hebrews chapter 12. When he says, let's throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles. Let's run with perseverance the race marked out for us. It's interesting to me that he mentions really two things here. Part of it's sin. If there's sin in my life, if there's actions that I'm a part of, if there's habits that I have that are ungodly, those things are going to knock me off of balance. There's this person that God calls me to be. There's actions that he calls me to have. There's a life that he calls me to live. And if I'm doing things and saying things and being around people that are drawing me away from that, I am off balance. I'm unbalanced. Everybody understand that? And that's what the author of Hebrews says. If you got sin in your life, get rid of it. Throw it off. Be done with it. But he also says, throw off everything that hinders, whatever that is. It may not be something inherently sinful. It may not be something that's evil, but it may be something that is throwing my life off, that is keeping me from being the man of God, the woman of God that I need to be, that is keeping me from being the spouse, the best spouse I could be, the best parent, the best kid, the best friend, the best coworker that I could be. It's keeping me from fully connecting with my God and seeing his presence in my job, in my neighborhoods, in everything that I do. And because I'm holding so tightly to whatever this is, it's throwing me off. And I can't run the race that God's marked out for me. I can't live the balanced life that he's called me to live because I won't let go of something that's throwing my balance off. Let go of it. Throw off everything that hinders. Be done with it. And see what God does with your life then. Whatever is hindering, whatever is weighing me down, whatever is tipping me over, I need to be willing to let it go. These are the things we're going to be talking about over the next few weeks. We're going to talk about balancing our bank accounts and looking at some of the financial choices that we're making and how those things can throw us off balance. We're going to be looking at balancing our time. What are we spending our time doing and focusing on, and how that can throw us off of balance? We're going to talk about some of these things, and I invite you, I encourage you to be here every single Sunday. I encourage you to bring people with you. I want to wrap up with this morning. Some of us in this room have lived an unbalanced life for a long time. As a matter of fact, we may have even gotten to the point where we're just used to living like this. We've just learned how to deal with it. We walk around tilted all day long because that's become our norm. I hope you understand what I mean by that. our habits, our relationships, our disconnection with God. We've been involved in those things for so long. We just think this is my life now. And there's other people that have joy and peace and better connections and all those kinds of things. Well, that's them, and I can't figure out how to have that for me, so I'm just going to keep living the life that I'm living. And folks, it doesn't have to be that way. You can live a life of freedom. You can live a life of peace. You can live a life of balance if you'll choose to. If you'll allow God to give, to provide balance in your life. Let me say this as we finish up this morning. If you'll allow me another story from the mountain. One of our teenagers, Mary Claire. Is Mary Claire here this morning? She's not here. Y'all can tell her I talked about her in a sermon. She'll be very proud. Mary Claire, wonderful teenage girl, getting ready to go to Harding University. She stands, compared to me, about this tall, would you say? About that? Huge backpack that she's wearing with all these supplies as we're walking up the mountain. And as we're making a pretty serious climb, she's not only carrying all of her stuff, but on her particular backpack, and there were other people that had to deal with this too, so I'm not just saying it was her, but she had the tent that her group was going to be sleeping in. It was her responsibility to carry the tent. So we're walking for a while, and she is struggling. She is barely, just baby stepping along because just the weight that she's carrying. And so at one point on a water break, she asked, can anybody else, can I take this tent off and anybody else carry it? And Griffin says, yeah, I'll carry it. And we take the tent off of her pack and put it on his pack. And as we're walking again, we start walking again, she's like, oh, changed my life. She was so glad to not have that burden anymore. I share that story with you because, folks, there are people in this room right now who could share the same sentiment. You are weighed down and almost fallen over with some things that you, if you would be willing to, could let go of. And my Lord Jesus Christ would take those things from you, and you would say, oh, changed my life. You can live a changed life starting this morning if you be willing to let go. Let him take some of those burdens from you. And so we're going to stand together. We're going to sing a song about living a changed life, about not being the same again. And as we sing this song, I hope that if you are staying there while we're singing together and saying, there is stuff that's throwing me off, and I want to be balanced, I want to be done with this burden that I'm carrying, you are more than welcome. We encourage you to come walking up here to the front and tell us what that is. We will pray about it. We will do whatever we can to help you get rid of it, to hand it over to him and live a changed life. And if you want to give your life to Jesus Christ this morning, you never have before, you've been carrying burdens that you weren't designed to carry. And he's willing to take all those away through his blood, through his grace, by confessing him as the Lord of your life and being baptized in his name. That can happen this morning. Or you can walk out when we're done with a smile on your face, about to tip over. We don't want you to live like that. Choice is yours. Let us help if we can. Walk together, we stand and sing.
I will